Greetings, somatic warriors. How's it going? Happy Monday. It is the 15th of January. 1-5. 1-5. And, I've talked recently about, my own experience in my body as of like the last year. I've talked about some of the other health stuff that I have, and because we're an embodiment education channel, there's no, I don't have any reason to not kind of share like what my experience has been with my own embodiment, growing up with a lack of embodiment, what was useful to me, what wasn't useful. And although I've not had a ton of chronic health issues, in my 30s, I did start having some really bad chronic back pain. And that was tied to childhood trauma. So as I've moved along in my journey as a mother, as a body worker, as a healer, someone who's been in private practice as a holistic health practitioner for 2 decades, as an educator, working with students in the classroom. There's been lots of time for experience, for observation, looking at various tools, using different lenses to look at body-mind connection, because it's not just about the body. Certainly someone can have an acute injury, and there may be a pattern to that, but there also may not be. It might just be that they fell down and broke their leg. It might not have anything to do with anything. It's not always, this, oh, well, we better find out what's going on. It can be, but that's not always the case. So I try to come to those experiences with clients with a very open mind and without an agenda that says, oh, I know exactly what's going on. This is completely psychological and we need to look into that and see what's going on, because that's not necessarily true for every person. 1, it may be true. 2, they may be aware of it. 3, they may not be aware of it. 4, it may not matter to them. And ultimately, it's their healing that is the most important aspect of any observational or therapeutic lens that I might be utilizing to look at my own experience, or certainly with my clients. It's not my goal or intention to project onto clients some type of psychosomatic meaning when they have an injury. They just want to feel better. Just make the pain stop. Make it go away so I can use my leg, arm, foot, toe, thumb, whatever it is. My neck is, completely jacked. And so those are the things that are important. And so the most meaningful thing that I can do is to focus on alleviating that discomfort and that pain, and doing that in a way that is efficacious for the client, and as quickly as possible. So what I want to share with you, I shared in a previous video that I have been experiencing some really intense, debilitating hip pain. This is new for me, but I also want to give you some context. So on and off for the last, I'll say 8 years, 2015 to 2023, even though we're in 24 right now, I'll just cap at 2023. So for those 8 years, I was moving around a lot. I didn't have a stable place to live. Any place that I was staying, the space was not mine to really lean into and occupy, right? I'm being mindful about how much space I'm taking. I'm being mindful about how I'm utilizing that space. Trying to keep a really small, intentional footprint, and sleeping in narrow spaces. So maybe I didn't have like a queen size bed or a double size bed or a full. Maybe I'm sleeping on a twin or a couch or, whatever it is. So, and there was a lot of that. A lot of bouncing around, a lot of like just going through the motions. Here are my legs moving forward. Everything is completely straight line. There's no deviation, just keep marching forward. Like that's the mentality and that's the psychology of what was happening in my own body mind. And as I was living, that's what I was doing. Marching forward, keep going, you can do that, you got this, on to the next thing. And living in a small space, sleeping in a small space, having a small footprint, everything was very narrow, right? And so what that looks like is that I wasn't able to stretch, I wasn't able to do yoga, I wasn't able to engage with my dance movement practices, I wasn't able to open up into the world, right? I wasn't able to open up my hips and drop my knees out and just relax into the setting, relax into my life, relax into the place that I was occupying. Again, I had to keep it closed up, narrow, just get the things done, keep marching forward. That was kind of what was happening in my body mind. So the psychology of my life was being manifested in my body, and vice versa. What was happening in my body was also just keep doing it, manifesting in my mind, in my heart, in my soul, and in my spirit. And so I've been wanting to do this for a while because the hip pain was pretty intense, and only in the last couple of weeks has my housing situation changed. I now have a space that I'm sharing. It's an office space, but I have a pull-out couch, and there's, it's like a full size or whatever, and I have a bigger space to occupy. I have more space to utilize. I'm able to fold the thing back up and then do yoga. I actually did a yoga practice this morning, which was very minimal and quite lovely. So I was very happy about that. And I walked for an hour with my charge, which was quite lovely as well. So what I want to share is from Michael J. Lincoln's book, Messages from the Body and Their Psychological Meaning. I've had this book for a long time and I utilize it periodically. But because it has been in storage and it's 700 pages, it's not something I carry around with me because it is unwieldy. But I had mentioned in my last video that I did have a massage on Saturday evening, and it was incredible. I'm not unfamiliar with massage and body work. I'm a body worker of 2 decades, and for the majority of that time that I worked, I received quite a bit of massage. I tried to average twice a month, and I certainly received a lot of chair massage from my coworkers, did a lot of trades, did a lot of paid massage. I probably should have received more than twice a month, but I was able to make that work with the exception of the last 4 years. My last massage was in January of 2020, right before the pandemic. I had gone to a beautiful location of The Now, located, I believe it's Studio City, and that was one of the best massages that I've had in a super long time. Beautiful setting, really lovely, very well thought out, very intuitive. It was a 90-minute session. I always do 90-minute sessions with the exception of Saturday because it was a gift. It was a 1-hour session. And so I want to talk a little bit about the psychology of hips, my hips in particular. And I'm only going to highlight here what stood out for me personally. There were some other things, there's usually quite a bit that he discusses, but not all of that is applicable to me right now. It may have been applicable 5 years ago or 15 years ago or 25 years ago. I forget how old I am sometimes, 25 years ago. But it's certainly not applicable now. But there were some things in here that were quite fascinating. And so I'm going to share a little bit with you. So in general, hips, unbalanced immobilization, fear of going forward, major decision making, nothing to move forward towards, poor integration of self and world, fear, use, misuse, abuse of power and strength by self and others towards self or others or both, feel no support from the world, a power imbalance in the home during infancy, family interference, domination, became demoralized and immobilized. This is very accurate, a lot of these things. So the fear, misuse, abuse of power, that's a past life issue that came up in a reading I had about 15 years ago. And so that was very interesting. Now I countered some of this with some statements of affirmation. So for the unbalanced immobilization, I am able to move freely from a grounded place. Fear of going forward, major decisions. I make wise choices. Nothing to move forward towards. I embrace my wonderful life fully, and so on and so forth. So these were some of the things that, if I'm aware of the chronic build-up in my life, the psychological and the actual lived experience of tiny spaces, narrow beds, living in my car for 2 months where I was sleeping in my front seat, which happened last year, January and February of 2023. That was a real bottom. And so, and this fearful decision making, all of these things, this is a cumulative arc, right? This didn't just happen overnight. This is a real slow arc. And so, looking at some early childhood information from Michael's book, and then looking at what's been happening in the last 8 years, it all just kind of, it's a layer, but it all made really made some sense. It was very, there was a lot of clarity around that. It was certainly affirming in some way of some things I already knew intuitively. So even though the massage practitioner that I worked with on Saturday night did a lot of work on my left hip, and there was a lot of burning sensation, I'm super sore, been drinking a lot of water over the last couple days. My right hip has been the one that has been really resistant, kind of locked up. I can't get a lot of hip flexion, opening the hip in the front. It's very tight. It feels very folded, like it doesn't want to open up and swing back all the way. It just wants to, that's about as much extension as I can get. It just won't release, right? So right hip, Michael says, involvement, ambivalence. And I meant to make a note here, but I put my pen away about, oh, here we go, here's a pen. Need to look at attachment, because I know that my attachment style is unhealthy for sure, and is something that I'm have not completely sorted out. So it's a little frustrating. Probably ambivalent disorganized, I'm gonna say. And so that ambivalence, involvement, totally made sense to me. So ambivalent and disorganized. Intense internal conflict, right hip, we're still on right hip. Involvement, ambivalence, intense internal conflict, connecting, fitting into the world. I think there probably has been some of that. Certainly, there have been certain things in my life that have worked beautifully. I've had some amazing work experiences, travel experiences, friendships, and then there are times where it's like the bottom falls out and you're like, what is this? I don't understand my place in the world. I thought this was going to be so magical and it's not working out. So a little bit of that was very interesting. Next section is the right hip joint, because that in the front of my hip is kind of where I'm sensing the pain. I think it's right where the head of the femur fits into the socket of the hip. Don't move. That's what it says, literally, don't move. Paranoid about self, others, world, an imagined unrealistic sense of power that I could set off World War III. Now, I don't know, I certainly don't feel that as an adult, but that's not to say that there isn't some underlying view as a child, as an infant, that if I was given the impression that I had so much power as to ruin someone's day or to turn their life upside down as a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old, because the adult is being dramatic and not because I've really literally done anything, it's that the perception from the adult is that if I were not present, their life would be okay. So somehow, therefore, I am at fault, which means I have an immense amount of power, right? If the adult is giving me all the power to ruin their life, I must be really powerful. An unrealistic sense of power, which is interesting because in the areas where we do have power, we don't use it. We don't utilize our power. We're so busy being preoccupied with the fact that maybe we're ruining someone's day. We're taking away our own power and not utilizing that for our own life. So looking at the polarity, if you will, or the differences, kind of the intersection of, which is quite confusing. It's a confusing intersection. I have the power to ruin your life, but I don't have the power to actually manage my own. How does that work? But that is the psychology, right? That is the psychology of this is why theorists are really important to look at. Developmental theorists, psychological lenses, different types of development, because I think they all have a lot of value, so much value. And I'm not going to say that any one particular theorist is right, because I've seen so many different dynamics in the human body that occasionally I will see something in a personality and in a body of a client that I have seen for over the duration of quite an extended period of time, and I think, oh, that's this whole picture speaks to me of this particular theorist, or this particular situation. Oh, this is what that other theorist was talking about. And that's why they have, that's why there's so many different opinions and so many different viewpoints, because the value is not applicable to every person individually. or as a collective, it's mostly about the individual experience, looking at one person and saying, you know, you had a different childhood than this person, and when I look at this particular theorist, I see patterns, and those patterns actually manifest in your body, just like what I'm talking about right now with my own hip pain and tightness and not being able to open up to the world, open up my body to and in the setting where I'm at, being in the moment. It's quite an iceberg for me when I look at it. That's what happens in my head. So last one, hip joint problem, and this is general, right? Oh no. That's what it says. Oh no. Intense reluctance to proceed. Unbendingly resistant. Distrust of personal power and the world. Learned from distrust-inducing dysfunctional family who projected high insecurity about their personal motivational systems and environment. That right there is a big one. That right there is a big one. Started in 2005 for sure, or 2015, sorry. For sure, that was definitely a big one for me. And seeing, I mean, there's a lot for me to unpack with this last one. I'm going to be working on that for quite some time because I'm looking at just the surface of it and going, oh yeah. But I have not written these last few notes: power imbalance and infancy, right hip joint, and right joint problems in general. I have not written positive affirmations for those yet because I did want to get the last bit of light and get this video up for you. So, you know, this book is quite helpful. This is a very, as I said, over 700 pages. Louise Hay's book is amazing. That was my probably second introduction to body mind. My first one would have been Ken Dykewald with the Body Mind book, and his work was pretty profound. He did a lot of groups, facilitated a lot of groups, mixed gender groups, and that was really fascinating. I remember my margins. I still have that book. That book is in storage. Always just so many, that's this person. This is, who am I recognizing when I see what he's talking about? Images, drawings, likenesses, and descriptions, and of course looking at my own body and my own body experience, because my body was the map. My body was the first map for me in learning about the real magic and importance of body-mind connection, and how really truly unembodied, disembodied I was, and so much of my childhood was that experience of just kind of being out here and looking down on things, and then not remembering a lot, or not having accurate information about certain things, and then other things just stand out like they're written in stone. I mean, that's the thing about the mind and the memory, and I can look at photos and say, oh yeah, I remember every detail about this moment, and I look at other photos and I think, I don't even recall being there, and there I am. Look at that. That's amazing. So yeah, so all I can do right now is share my own experience as we move forward in building this channel about embodiment practices, ways of looking at the body and the psychology of the body, and how to heal and transform that, and what we can learn about ourselves and our body-mind connection, and how we can unwind those patterns. And again, there may be a pattern, there may not be. There may be a pattern and you may not care, and that's totally fine. It's not a requirement that we attach some kind of psychological meaning to, the pain in your great toe. Like, it doesn't, it's like, yeah, I jammed it when I was like 4, and it's been weird ever since. And every now and then when it rains, it starts aching. There you go. And so, some folks really do want to know what's going on with their body, because maybe there's a sense of empowerment around that. Yeah, maybe I can change this. Maybe I can transform this chronically annoying pain in my knee that the doctors say, well, I just don't know what's going on there. We're not really finding anything. MRIs aren't showing anything. Could be that you're just, getting ready to have some minor arthritis or whatever, and they just don't have an answer. It's inflammatory. Everything is inflammatory. When they don't have a diagnosis, typical Western medicine will just tell you it's inflammatory. Not always helpful. So, maybe next time we'll look up inflammation. But if you have something that you would like me to look up in Messages from the Body, let me know. Send me an email to etherealsoul2003@gmail.com, and you can say, here's the thing I want you to look up. Here's 2 or 3 things, and I can do that anonymously. I can make a video and you can tune in. Or if you would like to identify yourself, that's totally fine. We can do that too. However you would like to have that unfold, I would be delighted to look that up for you and see what resonates for you around maybe something that you're experiencing that is chronic, or maybe even something that is acute. Wow, recently I just had this thing happen, and could you check this out for me? What does it say? I'd like to know more about it. So that is where I'm at. It is Monday. Tonight are the Emmys. I don't get to watch those. Kind of like watching those. I like to see the recognition of hard work and film, and the process of start to finish. I had this idea, it came to me in a dream, and I wrote it down and I pedaled it around, and somebody wanted to make it into a movie or a TV series or a documentary, and now here we are at an amazing award show, and it's been nominated, and wow, that's a journey. That is a journey. It's a lot of hard work, and so yeah, I do like watching those. Of course, the fashion's fabulous too sometimes too, but it is cool to see community come together in what might be viewed as a rite of passage. It may not be as sacred as some of our original rites of passage, but it is something where community comes together and witnesses you, and I feel like that has power and value. So we'll get to rewatch. I think we're gonna watch the like a rerun or whatever, a repeat. Here it is tomorrow on Hulu, I think is what we're gonna do. So fam, I hope that you're well and taking good care of yourself, drinking a lot of water, staying hydrated, eating nutritious food. Maybe you need a bag of chips now and then, just go ahead and do that. And don't shame yourself about it. Don't food shame. Don't body shame. Just show up the best that you can every day. Just be present. Show appreciation for your body. Give yourself a little hug. Just do it. Because you deserve that. You deserve that. Being embodied can be really challenging, hard work sometimes. Staying embodied, getting embodied, they're each different and each hold their own challenges. So I hope hope you are finding ways to do that with some dignity and grace for yourself. Sending you much love, and take good care until the next time. And I will talk to you soon.